people who ignored the "don't try this at home" warning. What did you do? Put orange juice in a soda stream and tried to carbonate it. It had a warning saying not to do it. I read said warning. I'm usually not the type of person who ignores warnings, but this didn't seem like it would be an issue. I thought it was because the carbonator tube would get sticky and clog, but I thought that I could clean it. Nope, that's not why. It freaking explodes. I was finding sticky spots for months. You know those Parker videos? I tried doing some of that when I was 12. I jumped from a bench onto a small wall and I landed on my belly. Ugh, that was painful. I couldn't breathe and my thighs hit the edge, so I couldn't walk either. But I looked cool, right? There are entire YouTube videos dedicated to watching kids trying to do parkour and getting their crap wrecked. I was staying at my friend Ben's house, who was a bit of a latchkey kid. The movie Daredevil had just come out, and I was maybe 12. It was 2 in the morning and we were busy skating around the front of his house, annoying the frick out of his neighbors. I got the awesome idea that we should light the skate rail we had on fire, just like in Daredevil. So, I grabbed a can of gasoline that was sitting in his garage, and proceeded to coat the rail with it. After coating the rail with the gasoline, I lit the gas and it was a little lackluster. I figured, let's just throw some more gas on this thing, so I did. The gas trickling out of the can caught fire and the can exploded in my hand. Luckily, my reflexes saved my butt and I let go of the can just as the flame hit it. Ben's lawn was completely aflame. I just walked inside and didn't do anything about it because I didn't want to get in trouble. TLDR. Tried to be Ben Affleck, lit my friend's lawn on fire. It's not your fault. I drank antifreeze on purpose. It's both spicy and sweet at the same time, not in a Chinese food kind of way, in a chemical reaction on your tongue kind of way. It's delicious and if you taste it you'll understand why animals and children will drink it. Not recommended. Antifreeze now has a bittering agent, European coolants for a while, mandated in the US a couple years ago, in it to prevent people and animals from drinking it. The flavor is bitter, salty, sour, metallic, which I discovered when I got splashed in the face while draining coolant. Definitely one of the worst things I've ever tasted. Not sure there's ever been a "don't try this at home" warning for this particular thing, but it certainly qualifies as something stupid. Now to set the scene, a bunch of mates and I go camping every year. It's a pretty awesome weekend and we get up to all sorts of stuff. Well, this year, in our drunken wisdom, we decided to shake the crap out of a can of beer, bury it and then build the fire pit on top. Don't ask me why, we're freaking idiots or something. So cut to a few hours later, we've all completely forgotten about our little time bomb ticking away, all sat around having a good time when the mother of all explosions takes place. We'd had the campfire down to a bed of coals for cooking, thankfully, so that when the can went off, it only launched dirt, ash and coal around as opposed to what would have happened had we built it up roaring like usual. For about 10 seconds afterwards, felt like a lot longer, I'm sitting on my ass dazed and confused, looking around, ears ringing as ash and dust gently tumbles down into the campsite. Felt like a scene out of a war movie. No one was injured and we all have a pretty awesome story to tell now. Still would not recommend anyone tries it at home, though someone most likely will. I want to try this next time I go camping. So, I wore a baseball hat a little too much, and had this huge butt clogged pore skin type thing on my forehead. It looked like a pencil eraser smack dab in the middle of my forehead. Had it for 2 months with no change. I researched online and found that with a bottle of Jack Daniels and a few friends, that I could use wart freeze off and might have some luck with getting it off. I told my doctor and she laughed in my face. She said good luck with that, let me know how it works out. I took that as a challenge, and just to make sure, verified there was no major facial nerves that I might accidentally freeze. In the end, it worked better than I thought. I essentially killed all the cell tissue, and it fell off, and healed up fine. 10/10 would do again. Your doc sounds horrible. Good on you though for succeeding. My brother and I would play WWE with some of our friends as kids, and the jackass would never let anyone win. So one day he came after me when I had one of the championships. I forgot to say that he had the other 2 belts, so he and I had a match, and at one point I decided to go for a powerbomb. I couldn't lift him up all the way and dropped him on the air conditioner. Accidentally, he was on the ground, lying in the fetal position in a puddle of water, so I went for the pin, and the bastard puts his arm up. I remember the kids that were doing commentary screaming out of shock. I waited for him to get up and went for a super kick. I missed and he pushed me into the bottom left corner of the window, and that piece broke and I got a cut on my forehead. I wanted to cry so bad, but he tackled me into the wall, put me on the bed and did a rock bottom from the bed onto the floor. He pushed me off the goddamn bed. He pinned me and won my dang cardboard belt. He held all the titles in our little wrestling group at the time, and I still hate him for it. Wow, that sounds more exciting and realer than WWE itself. I was around 3/4 and my sister was 18 mths/2, and after watching Barbie Swan Lake before bed we decide to imitate the scene where Ode jumps the waterfall in the bedroom we shared. Me being the eldest, naturally went first, jumping from our windowsill onto our bedroom floor. I landed it and felt like a boss. Then came baby sister's turn. She broke her leg trying to copy me. Needless to say, she can't remember much. I thought myself and my parents have fond memories of her running round the garden with a neon pink cast. She now claims she got her revenge by pushing me off my scooter when I was 8 and she was 6, so I broke both bones in my arm. Unfortunately, I can remember that a lot more and spent a holiday abroad in a bright orange cast. I can't even remember when I was a fraction. You must have a good memory. I arrived at a party maybe 15 minutes after they put on Beer Fest in the background. This was right after it came off on DVD. I said I'll try to drink with them. People told me don't do that. They literally had a warning saying not to do exactly that. I punched a hole in the wall, woke up my mother from vomiting so loud and crapped my pants. My friend had access to dry ice our sophomore year of college from his research gig. We filled water bottles with dry ice and some water, and capped them, throwing them and watching them blow up in mounds of Buffalo, NY snow. One didn't detonate, so I decided to defuse it, instead of it detonating as some stranger walks by, and it went off in my hand. Miraculously nothing more than a few scrapes on my hand, and 30 minutes of being deaf in my right ear. You're incredibly lucky. A coworker did the same, and that was the first time I saw muscle tissue hanging like a slab from a palm. That was interesting, and though I haven't seen the coworker in a while, I cannot imagine that he regained full mobility in his hand ever again. Back in 2007, me and my friends were really into WWE and we would do matches on his trampoline. Suddenly an argument got heated and my friend's brother backbreaked him on the patio floor. Another time, he had a plastic WWE microphone and I took it with me when I went to pee. Now I was a very scared kid, but really scared kid, and I was deathly afraid of this jigsaw mask from the movie Saw that he had. So I go out of the bathroom to find him at the end of the hallway with the mask on running at me. Now in the WWE, for those who don't know, when two guys are talking on the microphone and an argument heats up, a lot of the times they take a microphone to the face. So there I am, holding the microphone as he comes at me with the microphone, and me remembering the microphone to the face segments. I smack him dead in the face with the heavy butt plastic microphone. He plopped to the floor, and when he takes the mask off he's freaking bleeding all over the place. I was just distraught. Worst of all was hearing him scream and yell at the clinic as they were stitching his head. I was traumatized by that for the following months, but he was really cool about it and he didn't hold anything against me except for our other friends that hated me thinking I did it for the lols. I lost contact with him years ago, but he was a really cool and genuine dude. Moral of the story is, whenever Chris Jericho or John Cena tell you not to try any of that crap at home, you freaking listen to them. When I was 12/13, the movie Jackass was really popular and my friends and I would watch it almost daily. We thought they were all so cool and funny for doing stupid crap for the sake of a laugh. Well, we would try to recreate some of the stupid gigs they performed. One day while my mom took my friends and me to the grocery store, my friends convinced me to pull a prank on some dude shopping. I grabbed a huge pack of toilet paper, walked right up behind this dude, and threw the TP at this guy's back. He turned around and screamed at me, a little nerdy 12-year-old girl in glasses, and walked away. I have never been more mortified since then, and from that day on I decided that Jackass was actually really freaking stupid and immature. LOL, I'm picturing some old guy turning around and just screaming, like a no-word war scream, and then just walking off all normal. produced chlorine gas through electrolysis of salt water in my bedroom. Used the power outlet as my direct source of power. Holy frick. Used a crap ton of tannerite on a giant propane tank that apparently had some propane left in it. I have roughly 40% hearing in my left ear and 60% in my right, and degrading. Because of it, my idiot cousin shot it before I was in the trench and had my hearing protection on. I got thrown into the hole and couldn't hear for days because of the shockwave. His brother got thrown into the hole and was in a medically induced coma for a few days to try to stop brain damage. He's okay, but not 100% anymore. My dumb fuck cousin lost several teeth when I knocked him out a week later in retaliation. He then lost some more when his brother beat the crap out of him. When I was around 11 I started asking my parents and all the other adults I knew if I could have their old electronics to disassemble for fun. All of them thought this was the typical kid disassembles and then reassembles a printer thing that my dad had already done with me several times. Nope, I had blueprints, very poorly drawn, because I was 11, for a number of devices I wanted to build. I'd read up on Wikipedia and my dad's old DE textbooks to figure out what materials I needed to build a cutting laser, a microwave flamethrower, an arc welder, and a few other things I've forgotten over the years. As the broken electronics filtered in, computers from the early 90s, defunct DVD players, etc., I slowly acquired the parts I needed. My mother figured out what I was up to and stopped me shortly before I was about to extract the capacitor from a broken microwave. She was afraid of how much charge the capacitor could store, and it turned out that given my poor grounding safety practice I likely would have fried myself. Turns out, my dad's old textbooks hadn't explained the potential health ramifications of electricity, and for all the math I could do I was still a dumbass. The other, less dangerous stuff still would have been awesome, but I was banned from messing with electronics until I left for college a couple years later. If my kid had done that my first response would have been, oh my god, I created a genius. I think it's great you had such drive when you were young. Hope it served you well. When I was young, less than 7, I watched an episode of Zoom where they made mold. Being the curious little scientist I was, I reproduced their experiments to ensure the science was sound. I filled an egg carton with milk, cereal, and cheese. I did this all in secret, of course. I actually hid the carton in a dresser, perfect hiding place. It was dark and warm, so the mold grew like mad. Sadly, this genius experiment was cut short by my mother. She went to open the dresser, only to find it jammed a little tight. It eventually gave way, spilling the contents all over my clothes. Coincidentally, I'm allergic to mold. Anything they did on gladiators, or at least, the best approximation a bunch of 8-year-olds can construct between themselves. I never ignored the don't try this at home, but I did frequently visit sites where I had to confirm I was 18 plus all throughout my teens. I always asked my mom to click those for me because technically the person clicking it was over 18. Jumped from the turnbuckle, my bunked, through a table. Still have the scar on my forehead where I had to get like 10 stitches almost 15 years later. Chopped up a Christmas tree and stuffed it in the fireplace, then lit it. Sounded like a space shuttle launch. Don't do it. In middle school my friends and I built a ballista. That went swimmingly as one can imagine. Holes in all the neighbors' siding. Flaming arrows accidentally soaring into yards hundreds of meters away. We were on top of a hill in a neighborhood. And other things that I can't or won't remember. Quite impressive actually for being 12-13 years old. Did WWE and UCF stuff with my friends. We would grapple about and do submission moves on each other. Didn't know how effective the sleeper hold was till I almost choked my friend out. Also triangle chokes, arm bars and leg bars hurt like heck. The Boston Crab, not so much. I start UCF tomorrow, making me think my enrollment to the University of Central Florida was a bad move. Built a railgun at a friend's dad's machine shop out on his farm back in 10th grade. We cut a small tree in half with the single bolt I made. Our capacitor array wasn't set up the best and the transference rails had some intense arcing, powerful enough that the affected parts of the rails were completely vaporized. Took about a week and a half to build everything out of scrap his dad had around the shop. That was incredibly amazing but scared the frick out of us. His dad was on board with it until we actually fired it. He was expecting something along the lines of an oversized BB gun in power, not a cannon equivalent to a high-powered rifle. Freaking heck. Can't you kids just make a dang potato gun? In hindsight, I'm glad I had the thought to block the thing from view because the arcing probably could have had permanent effects on our sight. I have a ton of stories. I wanted to be a stuntman growing up and my all-time idol was Evil Knievel. Before I knew parlor existed, I was into jumping from roof to roof at my grandma's house. The houses weren't too far apart. One day I was climbing up to my training area. I used to have to climb the gate and up the side of the wall. I slipped and fell and fractured my tailbone. I also received one of those rockets that you launch and it comes down on its little parachute. A friend and I wondered what would happen if one of us got shot by it. So we took turns shooting it at each other using a pipe to aim it in our general direction. We were wearing our four-wheeling helmets and swimming goggles for safety and he got hit square on the head and survived our amazing stunt. We also tried building an underground base using an old camper shell as a roof and charged kids money to jump their bikes and whatever over our area of operations if we were in it. That I think was the stupidest thing we really did. Some kid took his dad's four-wheeler and tried to jump over us while we were laying down in it and almost crushed us. We were about 9-12 years old and the neighborhood kids would make us feel like rock stars when we rolled on by in our huffies. Mixed ammonia and bleach to pour down the drain during a fruit fly infestation. Everyone lived. The fruit flies were no more. Success. Lit a smoke bomb indoors. Hilarious until mom got home and found the scorch marks. Used a dry chemical fire extinguisher inside with no fire to extinguish. Hilarious but tastes horrible. Shorted the tracks of a vintage model train to make sparks. I have a scar from where the piece of metal landed. 32 Benadryl is way more than you should take for allergies. Just enough to have a conversation with a stranger in the bathroom mirror. As a father of a 2-year-old boy, reading these comments are pretty freaking terrifying. Who knows what stupid crap he is going to get into. 8th grade, metal shop teacher told us scary stories about safety so we wouldn't chop our fingers off in any of the dangerous metalworking equipment. One day he told us about putting match heads in spent 22 shells and hitting that with a hammer. The climax of the story was when he dramatically showed his thumb, which was missing the end joint, presumably the punishing result of the aforementioned crafting activity. The instant we got out of school, a group of us went looking for spent 22 shells, which were curiously easy to find. Now that I think of it, we got a box of barn burner matches and set to detonating. Those things are loud, and they shred the brass in interesting ways. This went on until one of the spectators got a hunk of sharp hot brass in his cheek and ran howling down the street. We scattered, and nothing was ever said about the whole incident, until now. Melted polystyrene with petrol to make a gooey mess. I tied a cardboard tube to a tree, lathered the inside, introduced flame and used compressor form. Front looked and sounded like a jet engine. The neighbor though I was building a WMD. I rafted a class 6 rapid. Unrunnable. I'll never see that river again. There was a lot of focus, screaming, laughing and whiskey. Don't ever try that at home. Nope. I was a rebel kid at turn of the century. Without real internet access to watch videos, we learned to make stuff from books and text files we shared on floppy disk. We made napalm once, which was pretty bad. It stuck to the ground and I think the mark is still there to this day. We made thermite too, but there was nothing to burn through and grass wasn't that impressive. Tennis ball hand grenades were always a fun one. They never looked like they would hurt. If there was tennis courts nearby, we'd always sneak one onto the court. I think the worst was probably fireworks fights. You know how it says not to point them at people? We did. Bangers being thrown at you was normal. Someone using a Roman candle as an RPG? My little brother and I were jumping off a 6 or 7 foot wall into a bush because we watched Jackass and thought it looked fun. Half an hour later I'm going to the hospital with a 1.5 inch diameter stick lodged 4 inches into my left hamstring. Not fun. We would take bottle rockets, light them, then toss them into the air by the end of the long little stick part so they'd flip end over end in midair, to see where they'd go once they lit off. It was amazing how often they came right back at us. We would also take firecrackers, light them, then throw them like grenades. It makes a stingy, throbby, painful sensation in your hand if one goes off early. A lot of us got shot with BB guns. A lot of windows got shot with them, too. This was pre-internet, pre-video games, pre-helicopter parents, 1980-ish. My uncle saw the video of the 50-foot table with the tablecloth trick being pulled off but done with a huge car, and he wanted to try that. So he and my aunt went to a garage sale, got a bunch of dining ware and went to a nice open field and tried it. It sort of worked. They did the math that they'd have to go 0-70 or something really fast for it to actually work. I recreated the jackass stunt where Johnny Knoxville straps bottle rockets to rollerblades and got second-degree burns on my leg. It's been 14 years. I still have the scar and hair still doesn't grow on that part of my leg. I was about 10 or 11 when I broke an old analog thermometer, drained the mercury from the bulb. Then I proceeded to incorporate the tiny glob of mercury into all my little games for almost a week before the insides of my elbows and backs of my knees turned red and swollen. Got a stern lecture from the doctor : tried to leap over a toboggan with 6 guys on it. It turned sideways just before it got to me. To avoid being slammed by it coming full speed down a steep hill covered in ice, I didn't quite make it. Positive side, now I know what shock feels like. It feels like nothing is wrong, which was good. Negative side, doc said going bald would be a very, very bad idea because I will frighten children with the horrendous scars. I have never shaved my head. The scars are easy to feel under my hair, like a topographical map of all your favorite mountain ranges. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.